They say that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, what if I was to tell you there's a product out there that doesn't require you to hold on to any handles, grips, or bars, and will allow you to take your training to a whole new level? Today's guests are the founders of the CFX Trainer and the driving force behind the hands-free resistance training movement. Please welcome to the show President of CFX Doniphan Stone and CEO Jeffrey Huling.
This is Performance Theory with Mike Clark.
Well, today I'd like to welcome my two guests. I've got Jeff and Donnie, and you guys are from CFX. Let's start off by going into a little bit of each of your backgrounds.
Yeah, so my name's Doniphan Stone, and I was the originator of the wrap, which is we've got our patent on right now, and that's the part of the CFX that really allows for the hands-free aspect of the CFX Trainer. So I started personal training, my own business about 10 years ago. I graduated with a business degree, and I was in school, and I realized I just didn't want to be working in a cubicle all day, and I really wanted to apply some of my passions in fitness to what I was going to do. So some of that leadership development stuff in college, and kind of heard, like, you find your passion, you'll never work another day in your life. And I took that to heart and really started asking myself, like, what is it that I truly enjoy, and what is it that I can be passionate about and just view as fun rather than work? And fitness was right down that alley. So I got certified as a trainer and then started my own business probably about 5 months out of college. And then from there is just kind of the rest was history. Basically got full-time clients and then ended up taking a little bit of a break and did some mission work for a while, but then started back on personal training, my own business again, and done an app and doing some book stuff. And so a lot of my background and history pretty much in the real world is all revolving around the fitness industry.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And you, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, somehow I find myself always starting with it. My father was a rocket scientist and my mom was a licensed clinical social worker. So I got a wide spectrum of, detailed analytic thinking and mechanical side of it. And then, also understanding the why do we do the things that we do and what's at our heart's desire and whatnot. So that blend took me into martial arts for 17 years. I was on the U.S. Taekwondo team, 6-man team representing the U.S. and Russia and Malaysia. And that's where I met my great business partner, Pete Holman, where we created a few different products for the fitness industry. Really fell into this realm of how do we move better, more attentively, that meet people where they're at. And so the first product was the Rip Trainer. Sold that to TRX and joined their team for about 7 years running sales for them. And then we noticed a big gap in this world of hip thrust and the hip bridge. The people were trying to create these crazy different ways of doing this in the club that was very disruptive. And so we created the glute drive and licensed that to Nautilus. And both of those products were literally that story of, cultivating them in a garage and taking them to market. And now we're proud to say they've cumulatively earned approximately $25 million in global sales. Wow. And so I met Donnie, and he had this unique product. And I'm happy to say at this point, through a lot of failures and a lot of tripping, that I'm able to identify now something that has legs and future potential. So, and we just started applying some of the experience that I had to the base of the product that he brought to the table, and that's kind of led us to the journey that we're currently on.
So the company itself is fairly new, correct? It's only about 2-3 months old?
Yeah, we joined forces back in September, so we're about a half year, but we literally launched this on Thanksgiving last year. So we're 3 months in. It's new.
So for those people out there that haven't seen what the CFX Trainer is, what's the best way you can explain it?
Yeah, so I think the best way to explain what a CFX trainer is a hands-free resistance training device that is portable, that you basically can fit just into your backpack. It's got 2 different resistance cords and an anchor point that you can pretty much set up anywhere, whether it's low, middle, or high. And then it's also got high-end resistance cords with a protective sheath around it, which is crucial for resistance bands. And then on the end of it, we've got an auto-adjusting wrap that you can slide open, slide your hand through, or even your foot or ankle, and then you just give it a little tug and it tightens so it fits securely and comfortably around any extremity, and then basically allows you to begin to move with resistance unconstrained, so basically free range of motion. So now you can use your hands or free your hands while also adding resistance to your core and everywhere else around your body.
Has the hands-free thing been, have you found it to be a big difference in the training so far in your research?
Yeah, I always make this analogy to Steve Jobs before we've had these computers in our pockets, right? That have the technology more than the Apollo 11 did when it took off. That Steve Jobs said that the world didn't really know what it was missing when it didn't have that product. And I make a bold claim that the world really doesn't know in the world of fitness and training what it's missing when it's had its hands free and unconstrained. And so when you take bars, handles, grips out of your hands, and you still have the ability, or whether or not you have any kind of limiting hand issues, and I'm not just talking about carpal tunnel arthritis either, or injury or surgery or rehab, just even sheer fatigue. You know, it is our front gate to our core, and a lot of times that's our weakest link. And so in order to, as Donnie said, train unconstrained, we bypass kind of this weakest link. We get things out of our hands, and now it literally, Mike, we can't tell you how exciting it is to see almost like a like iPhone release of excitement around what people can do on this new canvas once they get their hands back and it's not constrained. Their training isn't limited by their hands. So that's really the magic platform behind this tool, which is much bigger than this product, right? That will enable us to grow into other products as well underneath this umbrella of hands-free resistance training.
Yeah,
I know that.
On to that.
Yep.
I was just going to say, when it comes down to the training aspect as well, and things that we're seeing is like you take a shoulder press using the CFX trainer and you're getting 20, depending on the exercise, 20 to 60 times more engagement in the core. So there's a huge increase in core. I think partly because like it helps bring the focus of the resistance closer to where the hips are and bringing it out of where the hands are. But I think also then you're able to actually focus mentally too more on the muscle engagement rather than thinking about where your hand is or where the modality already is in your grip.
And, speaking of the shoulder press, myself, I've been kind of playing around with this for a little while since you guys sent me one. And with the shoulder press, I've noticed a big difference when I have a low anchor, it anchored low, and then I'll try a couple exercises mid, and then have a high anchor point. It gives you a completely different spectrum to the exercises and activates different parts of the core.
Mm-hmm. Mike, you nailed it. So, there's a lot of tools out there, and we're not going to say that this is the best. They're all tools in the toolbox, right? But I will say that when you can place an anchor point literally anywhere in a sphere or a globe, over, under, behind, sideways, any position, it allows you to really create forces that challenge your basis, your basic stability in any way like life throws at you in 3 dimensions. And that's a pretty unique characteristic of the CFX trainer.
And I know that since we've got that in stock, as I was telling you before we started taping, a lot of my trainers are now using it with all of their clients. And yesterday we were actually kind of fighting over which one of us is going to be using it because we had 3 clients, all different 3 abilities. I had my rehab client and they had just their standard workout clients, and all of us wanted to use it around the same time. So we're definitely going to be adding some more to our toolbox.
I love it. One thing we kind of joke about, we got to be careful because it does so much. And as a company, you really need to be focused on your core deliverables, no pun intended, but you really do have the ability to activate and mobilize with this, because it's this variable resistance cord. It's one of the best tools for turning on the entire kinetic chain, no matter what direction you're facing. But then you quickly transfer over to strength and stability. You can move out away from the anchor and really get some load on there and really challenge the strength component of primary movements. But then you transition over to a slightly lighter load by moving towards the anchor, and you increase your pace a bit. The metabolic demand is one of the best tools ever seen. If you ever wear a heart rate monitor or strap with this, you'll see it'll challenge that like any other tool. And lastly, the recovery and stretching piece of this is literally like having a personal trainer there with you, or someone stretching you out and doing creating forces on you that you can't create by yourself. So that dynamic of those different types of training styles is also, and of course you have all the various principles of, elastic resistance, of explosive training, plyometrics, and so forth. So we really, really are excited about the versatility of how it can meet people where their training demands are.
So how did you guys come up with the name CFX?
Well, I think when we're thinking about it, we want something that's memorable. We wanted something that people could relate to. I think it was funny. I mean, I think Jeff really came up with the CFX, where actually using like your eyes, where you can see the effects once you use the product, which is kind of funny. And then as he brought up the acronym with the C, the F, and the X, then I thought of like, wow, I mean, it really goes along with everything that we have built this product around, as well as like our philosophy and our core beliefs. But what it was is core first exercise, because we wanted everyone to first think about moving from inside out rather than outside in, because you'll get much more of an effect as well as results, not only in your workouts, but in life. And that's kind of, it just was pretty easy once it kind of came together.
And I would add to that, through Mike, the evolution of, the physical training that we all know and relate so well to. Donnie and I are, I think, very spiritual people, in the sense of really and when I say that, what's the purpose of your life? What's at your core heart's desire? What's your meaning of moving? What motivates you in life? And so the parallel of really looking at even beyond the physical core, but what really drives, is it playing with your kids on the floor and being able to do that when you're 80? Is it being able to travel with your soulmate? Is it just having the endurance or the strength at the end of a long day to not blow your back out when you're picking up, something heavy? But then we kind of pause and go even a little deeper than that. What's a little bit more of your motivator, even deeper than that at your core? And so it became this great kind of parallel analogy to, core first is, we totally believe in, moving from your physical core first, but we want to start even earlier than that. Because when we go through our daily lives and we encounter all of these challenges and excuses, we all, no matter how good you are, or we are, that we all have those defaults and excuses, that we have to be able to revert back to that core of our heart, to get us and reprioritize, our activity and our health, so that's bigger than the immediate, situation. So when we start everything with our, sessions and group fitness and whatnot, we, like our martial art background, we were both black belts in martial art. We always started our class with an intentional devotion of what you're here for and what's at your core of who you are. So that's a big part of the naming too, as well.
That's fantastic. Now, did this start more as a side project, or did you guys just jump into it? Like you were at TRX at that time. Did you guys jump into it full, like both feet, or did you kind of evolve this over the last couple months?
Yeah, so I think I started the product originally as a side project. I was actually looking for somebody to basically kind of say yes to it to get me going, because I was a full-time trainer in my own business, and I had a couple other trainers and stuff too. So it wasn't something that I was like, all right, I'm looking for something to work 80 hours in right now. I'm looking for something more that I can build a team, hopefully, and kind of be able to help them run with it. But as it turned out, you really can't start anything and just be kind of toes in only. So I eventually, right now I'm still doing a little bit of personal training, but it's been the slow scaling back. Basically, it's the personal training is just to be able to pay for our income. But outside of that, it's basically just CFX now, and we're all in on it now, or I am too. So it's been a slow progression, and I'm thankful with personal training, building this other business, because it's allowed me to be able to be full-time now with CFX, as well as not have to take money out of it, because I think it's huge to be able to put that money back in so we can continue to let it grow. So super thankful right now for the situation I'm in, for sure.
That's one of the things I think that a lot of personal trainers get into. They want to start their own business, and whatever business they go into, they start making a little bit of money, and then they start pulling all the profits out. With our company, we take minimal pay, and we've been doing it for 10 years. I could take out more, but quite honestly, I don't need to, and I'd rather keep feeding the company, because then we can keep expanding and keep growing.
That's right. It's I kind of refer to a new business and startup as a crying baby. You can't, leave and just disappear for 8 hours, or it needs constant love and attention, and it needs every cent. It needs more than the cents that you have to give it. So to take money out is significantly crutching, the growth and the development, for sure. But I kind of would say that, to your earlier question, this is kind of one of those 8-year overnight successes kind of thing. You have Donnie's expertise in working on the ground level with people's challenges, and his training with his clients was constrained. It was limited based on some of the things that he described, their ability to fire up their core, some of the limiting hand issues, the versatility of exercises, and having hands-free training. And then, I have my background of, bringing products to market, and it was just kind of a perfect match, where I would say, and that's the key is when you have relationships and you're all about a good message and whatnot, you can grow pretty quickly, but you do need to go all in. It's one of those things you need to be smart about it, but you really need to also have kind of a no plan B attitude, because the business knows if you're half in or half out,
What was some of the biggest help that you guys received when you first started?
Well, I would kind of revert back to some of my previous ventures, actually, at this point, to say it's like, people that believed in me and saw something maybe before I did, but they knew what I had in me, and they pushed me and challenged me to really declare these really bold unreasonables and go after it all the way, so that I didn't have life regrets at the end, So it maybe be kind of my mentors from early stages, and had a great opportunity to meet some incredible people like Sir Richard Branson on his island. And when you hang around people like that, you just feel like anything is possible. And when they see a talent in you, it's not even a question or hesitation that you need to go after your heart's desire and your passion. So I'd say that's honestly some of the biggest help I ever got.
Yeah, I would answer it the same way too. I mean, some of the biggest help I've ever gotten through all my other businesses and stuff too, to this point, has just been people. I mean, I think there's certain opportunities that you can never open up or create yourself, and it requires other people. Now, there's obviously like preparedness meets opportunity, and that's important to always being prepared and learning, but it's the people that have also taught me the information or give me the resources. So like, I believe there's no self-made man. I mean, I think it has required other people for anybody to get to the point that they're at. And obviously I get a little passionate about that too. But it's funny too, even from the beginning of CFX, I think some of like our biggest help has been our failures as well, because it's allowed us to change direction. And the things that we're now focused on in the direction we're looking at has a lot to do with, because the things that we did try failed, and it was actually a good thing that they did, because I think it would have sent us in the wrong direction. Not only that, we wouldn't have built or had to question more of our own whys to make those deeper and stronger and more integral into our culture.
So keeping along with that, what lessons have you learned, good or bad, from the previous companies that you've built or worked with?
That's there's such a great, I remember back to martial arts, got beat up at the playground, got enrolled in martial arts, and ended up being a 17-year career. My first 3.5 years, I got my butt whooped. My dad would bring me to every competition and sparring seminar, and he'd literally sign a check, and I'd get my butt kicked, and then we'd go home, and there goes a Saturday for 3.5 years of failures. And, it's kind of like that Chinese bamboo tree analogy. Like, most people from the sidelines would probably watch 3 years of butt kicking and say, like, maybe it's time to hang it up, and this isn't your bag, Jeff, But people that believed in me, and parents believed in me, and before you know it, the switch flips, and then I couldn't lose. And then as a national champion and international champion, then you take that conditioning, in Korea they call it dalyon, which is a forging and conditioning. It makes you, stronger, more wise, and you take that into a business. And then guess what? You don't have it all figured out. We launched the RIP Trainer, and it did phenomenally, and we learned a lot of lessons out of that. Out of merging with businesses and how you set up, contracts and whatnot, and then you learn from that lesson and you move on, and you think you're kind of prepared, and then you hit another one, and then there's another thing that sideswipes you, and it takes you almost back down to zero, and you can very easily say, like, what am I doing? This is crazy. But I will say, all of these things, they're like rings, in a cross section of a tree, and they forge your character. And it's and just like Lenny Kravitz, it's like you sit and he can play for 10 years in a bar, and then all of a sudden he's an overnight success, and you're like, man, I was a really lucky manager that walked into that bar that night. But was it really that night, or the 10 years that he played that got him to that moment? So I'm a big believer that I've had hundreds of failures, and I know without a doubt that those all help create preparedness for the future and get you just even better and sharper as you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I know you guys are expanding your team, me being one of the ambassadors for you guys, but what does your core team look like right now?
Yeah, so our core team right now is just recently expanded, probably about almost a month ago now, about 3 weeks ago. And we just brought on a part-time social media manager, as well as kind of like an ambassador lifter. This kind of like her focus is we have a big focus of filtering most of what we do through the question of, does it add value to our people? Meaning even the core people, as well as in our ambassadors, as well as into our customer. But right now, yes, we've got Jeff, who's got the title of CEO, and then myself, who's got the title of president. And then we just expanded, like I was saying, to one more. So right now within Denver, that's like our core team 3 months in.
Yeah, but of course we have our ambassador tribe, which is about 12.5 or so individuals that are experts in their field, right? That are out running businesses. And that's really key, Mike, is that they have their fingers on the pulse of the. They're literally working with people day to day and within their businesses, and we've flipped the script. We're big believers that they are the executive leadership team, and I think that a lot of businesses have it upside down. Those people a lot of time are prioritized at the bottom of the chain, and we look up to them every day for their advice, their input. How can we make their members and their clients' experiences better? How do we lift them up and celebrate their wins? And so those we have it's very unheard of to have a brand new product 3 months old and to be getting dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces of content and celebrating each other and clients and that fast of an onset. And that's just by, I always reference that TED talk about dancing on the hill and creating a movement. And it's a celebration and people are joining in the dance and we're moving each other and lifting each other up. And that team is helping this grow at the pace that it is.
I think a lot of times, especially with other products out there, that, sometimes they don't support the people who got them to where they're at currently. Mm-hmm. That's one of the faults that I've seen in some major companies. Now, what's coming up next for you guys? Do you have any educational component coming to the CFX?
Yeah, it's kind of funny you bring that up. We after this, we literally have an architecture design meeting around our CFX group training. By natural default, as we've got this out now and starting to get exposure, you start to have studios and clubs say, how do we run classes with this? How do we build this into our personal training? And when that happens, it's very important that you have a very clear and consistent brand message so that when someone goes to a location in, the East Coast versus the West Coast and everywhere in between, everybody's getting the same type of brand experience, whether it be from the queuing to how you talk about what CFX, the questions you're asking us, what is our philosophy, and then what is the benefits that CFX brings to people's lives. So we're going to standardize this program into a live and digital education course that will be available so that people will be able to, start to bring this out to their communities and help them get the benefits of it too.
Are you guys looking at doing anything like the continuing education credits eventually? Absolutely.
And we would, I think, be silly not to. We really want to build an infrastructure of our education, and it's a journey, of curriculum. And the hands-free is even more broad than just this particular product. But so we look forward to additional, courses and content that will expand, that explores more of how do you train hands-free,
What do you think are some of the essential elements for establishing your brand?
Well, I think the foundational essential element is knowing your why. I think, and that's the funny thing is it's not like just a one-time you sit down for 20 minutes or a day and then you figure out your why and then you're good to go and you forget about it. It's also remembering your why and continuing to go back to your why. I think it's interesting too because for us, there's a big aspect of which we're integrating into our business and brand, but is after we try to find our why, then do we connect with it emotionally? Because a lot of that's a good guidance for figuring out if it's truly your why or if it's a what. Because oftentimes we think it's a why, but we still are stuck on a what. And it's so important for the why because it really sets the course and the direction for where you're going to set sail. And that's really important because obviously like autocorrecting is always more difficult, even though it's still doable. But trying to set the course of our brand is super important. So I'll continue to ask that question why and continue to go back to it as often as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mike, I loved, there's this experiment. They put this chalkboard in New York City in the park, and it said, what's your biggest regret? And they just watched throughout the day and filmed people filling in the things that they did not do. And I think that it's really easy today to do the grind and work through the daily routines and say, I'm going to get to, but everybody has something that they'd love to do, whether it's learn a new language, pick up a musical instrument, travel more and see the world, and the problem is that as we all know, like we're never, you never really get to that point. It's all about the journey. And so what in terms of my perspective, in addition to exactly what Donnie said, once you kind of find out what that passion of yours is, one of the most important next steps is to surround yourself in a community of people that are boldly declaring it to each other, making it loud, pronouncing it, and then holding each other accountable to those in a couple areas of your life, not only physically, but what about your intellect? What about your emotional and fitness? What about your spiritual fitness? And then what about your community, like your family, your closest friends, and then eventually your community? So what's really important to us is once we form a group of people that discover their why, we gather together to really boldly proclaim, what our bold unreasonables are. And then we make sure that we're setting ourselves up to take action, hold each other accountable, so that we're nothing but smiles on and lack no regrets, at the end. So
how do you guys decide what platforms to sell the product on?
I would say that's a good question. I think it's funny how you kind of just like put into motion things and all like these questions that you're asking. There's always an answer to it, but sometimes you kind of have to dig a little bit because it just almost becomes a part of who you are. You don't even second guess it. But for me, I think part of it's been past experience, just with some of my other businesses, and knowing that, like, for example, like one of the platforms is going to be social media. Obviously, it's the time that we're in. So there's a bit of like even education, trying to educate yourself on like what's going on in the culture and what is useful and is it useful for your industry. But I've done it before as well. So taking some past experiences, because I think the biggest part too is also trying not to reinvent the wheel too much as well. So I think that's been a big one. And a big one too is just like being aware of what's already been given. So being aware of like your own resources and your own tools and your own people and making sure you're first starting there. I think that's super important too, because oftentimes it's almost kind of putting the cart before the horse. And then we're going out and trying to create something, but meeting such resistance because it's kind of skipping a step and making sure that I think first that like the core of everything that's going on in your life first is really seen the way that it should be. Because I think it's kind of like the 6 degrees, within one person, within 6 people, you can meet anybody in the world. And I think that's really important to think about as well. Simplicity is key in that factor.
Yeah, I would just add that, our product is elevating each other and living unconstrained. And so when you think about, the vehicle that we use to get there, sure, we have some like the CFX trainer and some other pieces. But so if you look at like the platform, like you asked, how do we deliver that? It quickly transcends into how do we elevate and lift each other? And so we, of course, do so through social media and celebrate each other's accomplishments. But, we want to have live events. We want to get together in incredible bucket list areas, and trips and adventures. We want to go on retreats, and we want to put people up on stage that tell stories, Mike, about their success and what they've overcome. And not just people that, but the coaches too. And elevate them and do an unproportionate amount of investing in production value in terms of videos in capturing a 6-month, year, or even lifetime story that we can share up on stage, bring them up, and then hold them up as high as we can on our shoulders. Because when we do that, that is what everybody aspires to. Is like, maybe I can do this too. That motivated me to maybe go after some challenges in my life. Heck, if they can do it, then maybe I can do it too. And that's a much better product and business that I'd rather be in. And we just so happen to have, movement creates emotion. So we got to move first sometimes. So that will never not be part of our business model. So we're going to sell them online. We'll sell them through our ambassadors. We'll have conferences and summits and education courses, and we'll be able to sell our physical product a lot of different ways. But I'm really excited to be in the business of elevating each other, and creating platforms in which to do that as highly as possible.
So you guys are pretty much first to the market with the hands-free training. What are you going to do when somebody starts knocking you off? Because you guys,
the word when.
because you got to think, because I take a look at some of the other products that maybe you've been involved with, that somebody's going to start ripping you off. So have you guys thought of a strategy yet?
Yeah. So I'll ask you, Mike, when's the last time you bought $2 Chuck wine?
Yeah, you don't.
Okay. So I guess my bold reply would be there will always be a cheaper option. I love Chuck Runyon of Anytime Fitness, who says we're totally content with our competition charging less because they know exactly what they're worth. And when we deliver a platform like we just talked about, an experience of lifting each other up and traveling together and eating healthy foods and so listening to great music and encouraging each other, that becomes the product. That's priceless. And so when other people come to market and they charge half of what we do, and they not copyright and infringe upon our content and whatnot, it's okay, because we know historically, suspension training is a great example. There are dozens of knockoffs, and yet TRX still maintains the grand majority share of the market because they're a premium brand, so it's okay. In fact, it almost helps further amplify who we are, what we believe in, and what comes along with a product and the training. So if we simply just tried to compete on pricing or, on the product feature level, we'd be in big trouble. So
yeah, I think that's something that can't be replicated with a company. Is once you establish, a community, that's something that somebody can't rip off.
Like the stage story with someone being celebrated in front of thousands of people. Like how do you get that when you go to a big box store and you buy a $9.99 product and you go home and you're there alone and you don't know what to do and you're confused and then it ends up in your closet in a couple days. Like, you got what you paid for, So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's huge. I think it's because we're focused on life transformation. We want this to also bleed into every other area of people's lives. And so to us, it's like, it's really almost makes us sad for the person that buys the cheaper product, because all we know that's going to happen is they're going to take it. It's either going to break or nothing's going to ever happen with it or with them. So it's really about we hope that they buy ours for the sake of transformation and change their life, not just about thinking that they're getting a good deal. Because we also are changing the value system. It's having an abundance mindset, and that they would want something that people really put a lot of time and effort into and thought, and then also surrounding themselves around the people who want the same thing. So if they want to elevate their lives, then it's really about being a part of our brand and our company, regardless of what other people are doing.
Mike, that said, I will say, we have this patent pending wrap. So if anybody tries to knock that off, we're going to go after them on that piece, which is the proprietary component of hands-free training. There are other resistant cords on the market, but we have the most luxurious resistant cords that are tested to last by a third party, to last 15 times what the average product out there lasts.
And I can tell you, they are comfortable. That's one of the things that my clients have been saying. I've got people going and doing chest press with them. They're doing, tricep press. And I guess with some of the suspension training products, they know what the straps feel like. They're kind of itchy. They're very rugged. And so they kind of expected the same thing around their wrists. And when they put these on, they're like, actually, this is pretty comfortable.
We wanted to design the Ferrari of a product that comes into contact with you like that, and it holds on to you. So it better be soft and comfortable and clean and easily washable, adjustable on the fly. So you don't have to. The interaction experience with it is very plush. But if the resistant cord happens to wear out or break, it's all entrapped in that nice safety sleeve. The resistance is butter. It is literally consistent. And when you buy those cheaper elastic cords, they dump it into this vat and then they pour it into the tube mold, and you get a very inconsistent resistance. And what happens when there isn't a sheath or a governor around it, it maxes out, and that's what causes them to break within a 15th of the amount of time. So, and we have some tricks up our sleeves that's going to come out to further, make this unique and proprietary. That will just continue along the lines of a luxury product and design. So,
and for anybody who hasn't used it, there's a big difference between a regular shoulder press, or if you're doing bicep curls with these, because it is varying resistance, right? Because you're going from no resistance, and then you're increasing the resistance as you go. I think that's a big difference, especially like for my rehab clients. It's a big difference because they can go to their own level and then work back from there, or they can push a little harder. Whereas, maybe if you're only able to do 10 pounds on a bicep curl, that's all you're going to do. Whereas with this, you might be able to push just that extra little bit. And although there's no exact weight to it, they know if they're pushing a little bit harder than they can.
Yeah. The truth is in the muscle activity, Mike. And what's fascinating to me is that elastic resistance has been the biggest hidden and kept secret in terms of resistance in my mind. It not only is it light and portable, but you nailed the progressive resistance curve works just how our muscles work. We get stronger through our range of motion a lot of times, and not always, but this elastic resistance gets more challenging as you go through range of motion. So there's this biofeedback loop, that goes out. The muscles feel the resistance changing all the time. It sends a signal to the brain that you better be recruiting more muscles to help support this movement. And then and it sends a message back to the muscles. And that's a very unique resistance curve. It's very dynamic. Nautilus spends thousands and thousands of dollars creating this Nautilus curve to try to simulate that same resistance curve, and we have it in a very portable, affordable piece. So, not to mention you can move fast and explosively with elastic. Try doing that with selectorized weight stack. You'll certainly tear something, or you can move super slow, and really use that elastic resistance to challenge your balance and control. And one other piece that I'll just say that may not be super intuitive is these cords can be aids to make things easier. So imagine sitting down in like a sit-up position, and you use the cords to kind of help you do the sit-up. So you have two people side by side. One could be facing away from the anchor point and making the exercise more challenging, or one could be facing the anchor and it's actually assisting them, and both people feel like they're training at their level side by side on the same exact levels of resistance cords. So I know I'm rattling on about elastic resistance, but it is one of the most beautiful tools, and if you do it right, I would put it right up there against the heavy dumbbells in terms of effectiveness, in terms of the actual forces that it creates on your core. Yeah. Without all the strain on the joints and tendons, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many clients have said when we really focus mostly on resistance bands that they start to see so much more definition as well. Because I think because of the muscle curve and the elastic curve matching each other. So you're able to go just a little bit deeper into those muscle fibers at exactly the point that they need to.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys wish you knew when you were starting out this company?
Great question.
Probably a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know. To me, it's like the process is so important that I wouldn't necessarily. Funny things too is because even if I were to go tell myself 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago, one thing is probably listen to my wife quicker. Let me say that was easy. That just can't. There it is. I think that's the big one right there. Is if I want to save myself some heartache, just listen to my wife a little bit quicker. Especially when we're on the same page. She was just totally in support of what I was doing, and we were making sure that we were on the same page with it. But just some of her wisdom and advice too. So I think the biggest thing is just continue to be aware of the people that you really trust around me. I tell just like whoever's around me to really trust what they're saying and seeing as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo that. That's great. I'd say, whenever you have a passion and you really want to try to help people improve their lives, it can create an imbalance, in a startup scenario, and it's almost impossible to not, walk that line. And so, you're constantly battling between, a balance and doing everything you can to help people. So I would say just, I guess, was it Matthew McConaughey said his biggest hero is him in 10 years, or at least he wants it to be. I would say, listening to that future self, that wiser self that says, okay, this is important, but, enjoy the process too. Really be present, because this is great. I mean, we get to create something that never was before, and we get to see people painting on their canvas the ways that they express their health and fitness and movement, and that's an amazing thing. And if you don't stop and look around once in a while, I guess Ferris Bueller said, you'll miss it. So that's what the probably advice I'd want to listen to more.
Do you guys have any tips for someone who's struggling to take their idea forward?
I'll start. My part of this forum group and some of my mentors, JP Flom, and I'm part of YPO and EO, these mastermind groups. It kind of always distills down to three things. One is to declare it, and it should be unreasonable. So one is just saying it out loud to people around you, right? The second thing is taking action, launch the missile, start to go. Because we don't want to be that person in the park writing down, or their deathbed. Bronnie Ware was a palliative care nurse, and I studied her quite a bit, and she had years and years of people on their deathbed talking about their regrets, and their top regrets was the same thing, was not taking action. So that's a bad spot to be in, to be having those regrets.
And you guys have actually integrated that right into your website, because when you sign up, you have to commit to starting that workout.
That's right. So you'll see a lot of these principles and our beliefs and that you're asking us, we embed upon the bedrock of our company. And then the last one is just charge. Be a rhino. Go after it. You can't dip your toe in if you really believe in something. If you do those three things, you speak it, you launch the missile, and you charge after it, chances are, it's going to be scary. You surround yourself with great people that support you and lift you up along the way. Life is an amazing place, and that would be the biggest piece of advice, is surround yourselves with others that have taken scary, massive action. And then they'll give you the confidence too, and save you some mistakes. Because as Richard Branson says, make tons of mistakes. Look for making mistakes. Try to make mistakes. Just try to make sure they're not too huge. And that'll keep you moving forward, and that's how you grow. So
yeah, I would add to that is there's nothing perfect, and I think probably one of the biggest issues that I know that has always held me back from executing something is analysis paralysis, is just trying to get control of the uncontrollables and then acting once I feel comfortable with controlling my future, basically, which is uncontrollable. So I think being aware of are we not acting because of analysis paralysis? Are we trying to get things controlled before we act? Or are we going to act and trust and believe that everything will work out good? So I think it's important to know that there's nothing wasted. Obviously, I can keep saying this, but for someone to dig deep and to believe about, I think, what do they even believe about the uncontrollables? That's an important question to ask. You kind of start there to develop or to figure out, what is it why you can't take action, and you got to be able to trust that it's going to be okay. But that's something that there's a little bit of hard work, and then as well as I think just putting yourself around the right people that already kind of have that foundation of belief and can execute.
Yeah.
So somebody wants to get into hands-free training. Where can they buy your product at?
Yeah, great. Love it. Easiest place is on our website at cfxtrainer.com. There's a shop on there that they can go in, and we'll tell you what, we'll give in your summary a little promo code for your listeners that they can go in and get 10% off on a CFX trainer. So that's probably the easiest. And like you said, Mike, in there's a CFX club, and that's a great thing to join for free and get access to all the videos, and the workout guide. There's even a custom section in there, how you can put in your goals, the time that you want, your starting level, and it'll totally customize your beginner CFX program for free for you. And then there's a couple steps before that you mentioned that you can set yourself up best for success. And we took all of the best industry leaders, moguls, motivators, the people that charge hundreds of thousands of dollars for talks, and we distilled it down into 10 minutes of 2 quick steps to set yourself up, to create your right why, what's your plan, and then creating an accountability support group to make sure that you're successful in getting there. So that's a great second step after you order, your product, your trainer.
And if anybody's looking to reach you out, find you on social media, where can they find that?
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can search us and find us CFX Trainer, and then as well as on Facebook, it's the same thing, CFX Trainer, all one word. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and I think we just got onto LinkedIn as well.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Perfect. I'd like to thank both of you for joining me on Performance Theory today. Good luck with the company.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's been fun, and appreciate all of your hard work as well. You're a prime example of who the people we're looking for to keep working with.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And for my listeners out there, if any of you are interested in purchasing a CFX, head to cfxtrainer.com and enter the code CFX10CLARK. That's CFX10 CLARK, and you will save 10% at the checkout. Thanks, guys, for listening. Please share this podcast and make sure you subscribed, because a bunch of you are listening, haven't passed it on to your friends. Find me on social media at Mike Clark Life on all major platforms, or visit MikeClarkLife.com.